What's up, everybody? 24 hours removed from WWE Backlash 2017, which, in the retrospect of this podcast, means nothing because that was a SmackDown show and we're here to recap Raw. But I just want to give a shout out to Jinder Mahal for winning the WWE Championship, which it's an interesting decision on Creative's part. I'm not going to say if it's a good or a bad decision because that remains to be seen. It's different. It's very unexpected, seeing as how far Jinder Mahal has come within the past year. And even his WWE career coming in feuding with the Great Khali, I think back in 2011 it was, to being regulated, to being a member of 3MB, to being released, to coming back, to being a jobber, to being teamed with Rusev. And now, 3 months after he was a jobber, he is WWE Champion. Good job, Jinder Mahal. I hope they have big things planned for him and they don't just bury him in the long run, even though I can kind of see him just being a transitional champion. Alright, so, this is the Monday Night Raw recap for May 22nd, 2017. Overall, this was a decent show. It wasn't bad, but it was more of the same that we're used to from Monday Night Raw. So the show starts off with a Bray Wyatt promo. Bray comes out to the ring and basically says how he will be the one to finally end Brock Lesnar. He'll slay the beast and whatnot. Which leads to Roman Reigns coming out saying that this is his yard now, and that if anyone's going to beat Brock, it's going to be him. More of the same things from Roman Reigns, which, it's sad because WWE doesn't see the error in their way, and if it's not working, they're not really doing anything to fix Roman Reigns. If they want him to be the top guy, they need to do something with him. Anyway, Kurt Angle comes out after that and says that he wants to see Reigns versus Wyatt right then and there. So, referee comes down, the match starts. Overall, it was a good match, but it ended with Samoa Joe interfering, which then led to Seth Rollins interfering, which then leads to Kurt Angle making the main event for later tonight being a tag team match, which is the reunion of 2/3 of the Shield in Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe and Bray Wyatt, but we'll get to that later. Next, we had a cruiserweight match of Akira Tozawa versus Daivari Jr., I'm going to call him because he's the Daivari I knew back in the day as little brother. Overall, this was just another cruiserweight match to me. It was a good match. It wasn't bad. Brian Kendrick was watching and semi-commentating from backstage. Because he's still in a feud with Akira Tozawa 3 months later, even though they haven't really shown it much on Monday Night Raw. I guess it's a 205 Live feud. I mean, I was very intrigued with that feud when it first started, when Tozawa first came in. But I really, with my work schedule, I don't have the ability to watch 205 Live as much as I would like to, because every time on Monday Night Raw, though, when the Cruiserweights come on, it's a great match. And I hear 205 Live is one of the best shows of the week. But that match ends with Akira Tozawa winning, which then leads to a backstage segment between Alicia Fox and Sasha Banks. Now, it's funny how this feud started, because it all started from seemingly a botch that happened a couple weeks ago, where Sasha Banks, I believe, hit a double knee off the top rope, and Alicia Fox's shoulder was up in the pin, but they gave Sasha the victory, and it kind of started a semi-mini feud with this. But the backstage segment with this kind of led to Noam Dar showing up and saying that Sasha Banks is jealous of Alicia Fox because no one is there to love Sasha Banks. It was an interesting moment there, I'm not going to lie. But I kind of like how, I mean, at least in Noam Dar's case, they're slowly throwing a cruiserweight into a different division. I mean, originally it was Alicia Fox going in there with Cedric Alexander for the cruiserweights, but now they've kind of reversed that. I hope they try to throw the cruiserweights more into the other divisions, like the mainstream, not just the cruiserweight division, because when they throw the purple ropes out on Raw, it kind of segregates the division, I feel. So this leads to a match between Sasha Banks and Alicia Fox, announced for later by GM Kurt Angle, who shows up, who also, while he's there, Elias Sampson shows up playing his guitar. Angle realizes he's been showing up every week, hasn't had a match yet, which that gives a match between Elias Sampson versus Dean Ambrose announced, which happens next, I believe. And the Miz and Maurice are out on commentary, and they keep playing up the fact that if at Extreme Rules Dean Ambrose gets disqualified, he will lose his Intercontinental Championship, which is interesting because the pay-per-view's Extreme Rules. You would think the matches would have no disqualification to it, and I don't see how that's very extreme if a disqualification will cause a championship to be lost. But anyway, this is Elias Sampson's first match on Monday Night Raw, and it was a semi-decent match. He worked, I feel like, a little stiff or slow, but the match ends with Miz coming into the ring, attacking Sampson, so it disqualifies Ambrose, so he loses the match, which then the Miz leaves, and then Sampson further attacks Ambrose, I believe, is what happened. Then this shows us a backstage segment where Big Cass is running with, I believe it was a referee, and we find Enzo Amore knocked out backstage, and Cass threatens to find whoever did this, which leaves us unresolved by the end of the night because they never resolved who attacked Enzo. I don't know if it was a segment that was cut or if it's supposed to be leading to something bigger in the long run, or it's to write Enzo off TV for a while for whatever reason. Now, up next, they announce Finn Balor versus Carl Anderson coming up, which we come back from commercial. Balor's in the ring, and it's weird how they've kind of excluded Balor from this fatal 5-way match at Extreme Rules. Like, he's in the match, but he's so out of the story, I feel. Unless it's supposed to, push further the story between the four men of Wyatt, Joe, Reigns, and Rollins, the future feuds of their own. So, lo and behold, though, Balor's in the ring, and all of a sudden Paul Heyman comes out. And Paul Heyman basically announces that where everyone else sees Balor as not even within competition for the other four people within the match, apparently Brock Lesnar does not see Balor as this underdog, and he's looking forward to facing Finn Balor in the future. Which, I mean, that's the match I want to see personally, because I feel like it could be spectacular. You have Finn Balor, this small guy, but who's accomplished so much, who never lost his Universal title. This can be his rematch versus Brock Lesnar, and I feel like those two, if Brock could finally get back to actually wrestling and not having 3 moves. I mean, everyone makes fun of John Cena for having the 5 moves of doom, but Lesnar has maybe 2.5. But this match, if they can bring Brock out of Brock mode, Suplex City mode, and have him put on a good match, this could be match of the year almost. And I say almost, but I feel like that match could be spectacular. Shades of what probably Punk and Brock did back at SummerSlam 2013. And see, that's the thing. Brock still does wonderful work when he's with the right opponent. And I feel like Balor could definitely bring out that within Brock. So basically, the match happens. Finn Balor versus Carl Anderson, which is, the history between those guys with the Bullet Club back in Japan. It seems like they're teasing it, that they might get reunited at some point because the commentating team always references their history. So I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the line there was like a double turn if Finn becomes the number 1 contender and the club reunites. But basically, this was a back and forth match, which Finn ends up winning with the coup de grace, and they show Anderson and Gallows just looking on while Finn's celebrating in the ring. And then we cut to commercial. Coming back from commercial, we get the Sasha Banks versus Alicia Fox match, which, I mean, that's your standard Divas match at this point, women's match, since they're not Divas anymore. It wasn't really anything special. It wasn't terrible. It was kind of just like a filler match. But I've noticed the one thing that kind of threw me off was at the end of the match, Alicia Fox and Noam Dar did this weird, very feminine kiss thing, especially on Noam Dar's part, which, he pulled it off well. It was very interesting to see. But overall, that match was definitely the match for the people to go have a bathroom break. Backstage, coming back from commercial, they show Kalisto with Apollo Crews. Kalisto's basically interrogating Apollo as to why he's working with Titus O'Neil. And then he questions whether or not he was the one who attacked Enzo Amore backstage. Then Titus shows up, and they do an interesting thing where they show, or they have Titus go in and basically say how Kalisto was trying to be the first international superstar, part of the Titus brand, which Kalisto denies. But I mean, Titus on promo work is fantastic. He's just very entertaining. Right now, it's cool that they have him more of a managerial role. I don't know if he's still being punished from his incident a year ago. I mean, it seems like he's never fully recovered off that, even though he was starting to get pushed to the moon before that. But that sets up Kalisto versus Apollo Crews later on tonight, because we have this little Apollo Crews heel turn going on slowly. I don't know what it's going to lead to in the long run. After that, we get a Goldust promo, which is eerily reminiscent of the old school Goldust promos, where he's in a backstage segment. He's doing his long, hard heel, like breathing and feeling himself all over. It was as odd as Goldust has always been. It was nice to see them go back to like old school, like 90s, 2002 Goldust. And even at one part, he throws papers away and he's like, "I don't need a script. I'm writing my own story now," which is cool, which I don't know if this is leading to Goldust's last run before retiring. I mean, he's getting up there in age, but it's very cool to kind of put him back in that heel role that, I mean, he does so well, because Goldust as a character has always been very intriguing. I understand, they can't go back to his original character with WWE being PG now, but it's going to be an interesting thing to see. I look forward to it. Dustin Runnels has always been a phenomenal worker wherever he goes. And, yeah, we'll see where that goes. And next, after that, we get an Alexa Bliss interview backstage after them showing what Alexa Bliss did to Bayley last week with the kendo stick, leading into their kendo stick match at Extreme Rules, which, I mean, they try to interview Alexa Bliss, and she kind of no-sells it, and says that she's going to basically do to Bayley exactly what she did to her last week. And, that basically is how they promote the match. They announce Alexa Bliss is going to be in action later tonight. They didn't announce who the opponent was offhand. Turns out, we find out it's Mickie James later on. But coming up after that, we had the Kalisto versus Apollo Crews match, which, it was a good match all in all. You had Apollo Crews kind of playing mixed emotions with himself, while Titus O'Neil was great on the outside. He kept yelling at Apollo to stay on him, stick it to him, but he was getting very agitated about it, which in the end kind of threw Apollo's attention span off, which allowed Kalisto to hit the Selena del Sol, pick up the victory. And in the ring, it was just Titus and Apollo just kind of being distraught about the loss. Now, the next match was Matt Hardy versus Sheamus. The winner of this match was going to be able to name the stipulation for their Extreme Rules Tag Team title match with the Hardy Boys versus Cesaro and Sheamus. I've never been a big fan of Sheamus. There's nothing inherently wrong that he does. He kind of bores me, and I know that's the reaction from a lot of the fans, but he's been around for, I want to say, 8 years now, and WWE has tried to push him so many times, and every time the fans really, minus, I think, 2011, his first face turn, they've never really gotten behind it. This match itself, it was hard-hitting, it was good. It's always great to see the Hardy Boys back. Matt still semi-doing his broken Matt Hardy gimmick mixed with his version 1 gimmick. There was some spots in this match that were fun, a lot of fighting in the ring. There was some fighting outside the ring. There was a spot where Matt went outside after kicking out of, it was like a knee to the face, I believe it was. And you didn't see it on camera, but Cesaro was creeping up on Matt, and that caused Jeff to jump on the apron and jump onto Cesaro, which then, of course, distracts Sheamus, and Matt hits a twist of fate, picks up the win. And They announced at Extreme Rules their match will be a steel cage match, which I'm sure everyone was expecting it to be a ladder match, but I guess after, them just doing that at WrestleMania, it wouldn't have happened that much, or been that exciting for being so recent. I mean, WrestleMania was only, at this point, a month and a half ago. So I can expect, and we all can expect, that cage match to be very, probably high-flying. You're definitely going to see Jeff do a spot off the top of the cage, Next up, we had Tony Nese versus Austin Aries with Neville sitting outside. Neville, as we've seen in recent weeks, has been trying to get everyone to do his bidding to take out Austin Aries, because Austin Aries is apparently the only threat to Neville's Cruiserweight Championship match. Now, this match was great. I really liked it. There was Austin Aries is funny because he's like one of the main stars of the Cruiserweight division, but then you look at him back in his Impact days, his TNA days, he was like a heavyweight title contender. Now to see him relegated to like a Cruiserweight division is interesting, and that just kind of shows WWE's mindset towards smaller guys. Balor being the exception, and Styles being the exception, where in TNA you had Aries facing the likes of AJ Styles all the time, and they put on matches like it was like nothing. There was no like weight difference, and now AJ Styles almost being the same weight as Austin Aries is the heavyweight guy, whereas Austin Aries is cruiserweight. Now, there were some spots in this match. Aries did his diving, spinning elbow off the top rope. And then there was a spot where he tried jumping off the top rope again. Tony Nese caught him with it was like a diving shoulder block almost, and that looked reckless. The ending of this match was really cool because Aries had locked in like a front face guillotine that he was hanging on with. And at the point, one point, Tony Nese kind of threw him off as if he was trying to break the hold, but Aries just kind of rebounded once he hit the mat and locked in his, what's the move called? The last chancery, that's what it's called. He locked it in. Tony Nese ended up submitting, which I thought was cool because it was a little bit of a swerve. It looked like the move was going to be broken, only for Aries to rebound right off into last chancery. And then while on top of the rope, Neville's in the ring with Tony Nese and ends up attacking him and then locks him into the rings of Saturn, which I find funny that they're still calling it that, seeing as how that was Perry Saturn's move back in the day. But it was funny because while this is all happening, Aries is basically on the ramp, kind of making fun of Neville. He was like, "Oh, good job, I just beat him, now you're doing this," and it was entertaining. So we went to commercial break, came back, and then we have Alexa Bliss versus Mickie James, which, this was a good match. It was short. I'm kind of intrigued what they're doing with Mickie James. I mean, Alexa Bliss has shot through the moon, and she's been soaring ever since. I remember watching her back when she was managing Blake and Murphy back down in NXT, and you could tell she just had something. And back then, she wasn't that great in the ring, but she's evolved so much, and she's definitely one of the standouts in the division now. Mickie James, on the other hand, she came back, what was it? I don't remember. No, it was back SummerSlam weekend of last year when they did TakeOver, or it was TakeOver Toronto, where she came back and did face Asuka, and she looked like she hadn't missed a step. And since coming back, it was cool how she came back as La Luchadora, but now she's basically being the jobber to the women's division. Very similar to, I feel, how they're going to end up treating Tamina on SmackDown. Now, the match ended with Alexa Bliss picking up the win and then grabbing the kendo stick, only for Bayley to make the save and attack Alexa Bliss with the kendo stick. And basically that was the end of that segment. It was probably all of 5 to 6 minutes. And it could have been a lot longer. It could have been a lot better. It wasn't terrible. But that led us to the main event, which was Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt and Samoa Joe. Now, I'm happy with 3 out of the 4 competitors in this match. Like most people on the internet these days, I'm not a big fan of Roman Reigns, and a lot of that has to do with his booking, which is what everyone says. Now, I like Roman Reigns back in the day when he was a part of the Shield, and he was the silent guy, and he was just an ass kicker, and Now Roman Reigns, it's not that he puts on a bad match. It's that I think he has John Cena syndrome to the extent of he's just very predictable. You kind of know what Roman Reigns is going to do and when he's going to do it. Whereas the other people in this match, like Seth Rollins, for example, he's very, he's quick, he's agile, but his moves, he always switches up. The same with Samoa Joe. And I don't know if that comes from their years on the indie scene and knowing how to work the crowd better. But they have, like, their set moves, but their matches never feel the same. Bray Wyatt, too, he knows how to work the crowd. He does have a very bland moveset, I feel. I mean, Sister Abigail, it's a spinning flatliner. It doesn't look like it hurts at all. I don't know how it puts people away. I mean, there was one cool spot in this match where Reigns started cocking down to do his Superman punch on Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt just kind of did his little exorcist thing, and it kind of threw, you could see in Reigns' face, it kind of threw him off a little bit. I also think it's funny that they still have Roman Reigns coming out with a taped up shoulder and taped up arm, but he's selling none of that. So it's like they know the injury's there, but apparently he's strong enough that it doesn't bother him, which at that point, why is he even wearing the tape? The match ends with Roman Reigns going for a Superman punch on Samoa Joe, only for Joe to move, and he accidentally pushed Rollins out of the way, which caused a little rift between those two. And then Bray Wyatt pulls Reigns out of the ring, hits Sister Abigail on the rope, on the outside. And then Seth Rollins gets locked in the Coquina clutch and basically passes out. I like that they're making that move, the Coquina clutch, make people pass out instead of tap out. Because one, it makes Rollins still look credible because he didn't give up. And two, it makes the move look a lot more devastating because the people don't even have the ability to tap out. It just kind of like knocks them out. After this, so Joe and Wyatt win. After that, they show backstage Kurt Angle watching the match, and Finn Balor walks in, and he basically, like I was saying earlier, he was like, "Oh, Kurt, great main event, but next time don't leave me out of the fun," which he asked for a match against one of them next week, which Angle denies, and then he says he's going to be in a triple threat against Joe and Wyatt next week, which is cool. And then there was a little funny thing where Angle says, "Damn, I'm a great GM. Oh, it's true. It's damn true." It's a little funny that they had Angle kind of like showboat himself there, which, I mean, he didn't need to, but that, in a weird way, that kind of seemed a little heelish to me. Which could show shades of Angle GM, circa, 2003 when he was SmackDown GM, only to get thrown off the rafters by the Big Show. Remember when Big Show did violent stuff? Yeah, me too. So, that's the Monday Night Raw recap for May 22nd. Overall, it was a decent show. There wasn't really anything terrible to it. The only filler matches I felt that were just kind of thrown in there were the Sasha Banks match. I mean, and you can say the Kalisto Apollo Crews match was a little bit of a filler match, but it did kind of build more for the Titus brand stuff with Apollo, which I'm surprised that Titus O'Neil hasn't been punished after releasing that photo of him with Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman while they were, I think, in Rome, and in the midst of their long-awaited feud, or not long-awaited, tenured feud with Braun always just not being done with Roman yet. But anyway, guys, overall, like I said, it was a decent episode of Monday Night Raw. There was nothing coherently bad about it. Hopefully I'll be doing more of these. This was the first episode, I guess you could say, of my Monday Night Raw recaps. Maybe I'll do one for SmackDown. We'll see how this goes over. Thanks for listening, guys. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel. Any ideas of videos or podcasts I could do in the future, things you want to hear me talk about, just send me a message or leave a comment below. Thanks for listening. As always, have a good night, and I'll talk to you next time.